When you think of the Mario Kart games, you typically picture huge casts of Nintendo A-listers. You know, we're talking cream of the crop here. Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Toad, Yoshi. Like, that's a huge part, at least for me, of the series' charm. It's seeing those beloved Nintendo darlings karting to the death. But picture the original game's cast. We're talking Super Mario Kart. There's your standard Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Yoshi. We've got Toad, Bowser, Koopa Troopa, and then Donkey Kong Jr. Now, this guy is an enigma. What games has he been in? Where does he come from? Plus, what's he doing here? Shouldn't it be Donkey Kong, the much-loved, much-revered Nintendo darling, instead of this imposter? But it turns out there's a fascinating story behind A, how this character was created, B, how the heck he ended up in Super Mario Kart instead of Donkey Kong, and C, what the hell happened to him afterwards. Let me take you on a journey to discover the Donkey Kong that Nintendo forgot. Hi there, welcome to Thomas Game Docs. So let's start by answering that first question. Who is this guy? Where'd he come from? Well, to get started, we're going to need to look to a game that Nintendo love not to talk about. Maybe accusing them of sweeping it under the rug is a little melodramatic. They did re-release it on both the 3DS and the Wii U. But looking over their marketing for this game, especially in recent years, you do get this feeling that it's not one of the prouder moments of Nintendo's history. They don't like to boast about it, really. And for good reason, because the game I'm talking about here is Donkey Kong Jr., the classic arcade game. You see, this was a follow-up to the arcade smash hit Donkey Kong, but while in the original game we play as Italian plumber Mario on his quest to rescue Pauline from the evil animal brute Donkey Kong, this time round things are a little different. Now we play as Donkey Kong Jr. on a quest to save his father, Donkey Kong. And the villain is Mario himself, who goes to great lengths to separate this Kong family. He acts rather inhumanely, really, so it's no wonder that Nintendo of today seem to keep fairly quiet about this game. But let's step back. How was this game created? Who thought up this, well, kind of cruel idea for a game? Why, who else but Shigeru Miyamoto? You see, while developing the original Donkey Kong arcade game a few years prior, Miyamoto and his team had thought up a bunch of ideas that wouldn't really fit into the game back then. They had even designed full, complete levels, like ready to go. But because of various constraints, these didn't end up making it in. And that made Miyamoto sad. These were some, he thought, high-quality designs. Could he really throw them away? The very thought sent shivers down his spine. But just as Miyamoto was mid-panic, maybe I'm exaggerating a little, one of his co-workers piped up, "We've got all these ideas, why don't we make another game?" But would they be allowed? Would the top dogs at Nintendo permit it? Well, luckily for Miyamoto and his gang, Donkey Kong, the original, turned out to be a huge hit, massively successful on a scale Nintendo as a company had never really seen before. So you can imagine their enthusiasm about developing a sequel. You want to earn us more money? Heck yeah! And so Miyamoto and team started working on their sequel, using all their ideas and level designs that hadn't made it into the first game. But that wasn't all, you see, because Miyamoto had this idea that he really liked. What if this time round people played as Donkey Kong himself? Mario already had his turn in the limelight, now it was the turn of everyone's favourite ape. Or at least, that was how it was meant to go. Almost instantly, the team encountered a major problem. Donkey Kong was just too big. He didn't fit, the levels weren't suited to him. It was a disaster. And so the team returned to the drawing board. If Donkey Kong didn't work because of his unusually large size, what if they changed that? What if they made Donkey Kong smaller? And so, after some tweaking, Donkey Kong Jr. was born. And as soon as the game was brought to arcades, it proved itself to be a huge hit, similar in scale to its predecessor, the original Donkey Kong. Critics described it as, quote, great fun. Very insightful. Plus, many regard it as one of the 100 greatest video games of all time. That's certainly high praise. But in spite of this major success, I think for me, I don't remember Donkey Kong Jr. for this original arcade game. No, when I picture this oft-forgotten Kong, it's because of his appearance in Super Mario Kart. Drifting round corners, throwing banana pills at his comrades, that, for me, is Donkey Kong Jr. But why? Why is Donkey Kong Jr. in Super Mario Kart? Surely it should be regular old Donkey Kong. I mean, this classic Kong is far more iconic, more well known, and his return to screens with Donkey Kong Country was just around the bend. But instead, the representative chosen for the Donkey Kong franchise was DK Jr. So, how did this happen? Well, the short answer is, I don't know, and neither do Nintendo's developers. Wait, what? Yeah, let me explain. So, Mario Kart originally came about because Shigeru Miyamoto asked two game designers within Nintendo, Tadashi Sugiyama and Hideki Kono, to develop a version of F-Zero with 2 players. But it turned out that the humble SNES couldn't handle a 2-player version of this fast-paced racing game. So, to bring Shigeru's vision to life, the two designers switched out F-Zero's high-octane racing with some slower-paced go-karting. And in the early days of this software's life, the characters driving these go-karts took the form of generic men in overalls. Not Mario, I might add, though he is known to wear an overall or two on occasion. But no, these drivers were just regular old ladies and gents wearing overalls. However, as development continued, the need became clear to change out these overall wearers for some more distinct looking characters. The team wanted them to be easily recognisable from behind. But that's easier said than done. How many video game characters are distinct from the back? This was a real conundrum for Kono and Sugiyama. But then a sudden thought flashed through their minds. What if they used Mario characters? Now, this was a bit of a stretch at the time. Obviously, nowadays there's Mario spin-offs galore. Tennis, golf, football. But back then, there were none to my knowledge. Practically none if there were a couple. Either way, this was a pretty gutsy suggestion. But it was approved by the company, and so the team got to work deciding on which characters would make it in. They started with the obvious ones, Mario, Luigi. Both of these characters looked distinctive. Their overalls made it clear who they were. Plus, their iconic green and red colour schemes made it obvious who was who out of the pair of them. Alright, that's 2 down. What about the rest? Well, Kono and Sugiyama just started running through Mario characters that they thought would fit, one by one. Yoshi, Peach, Toad, Bowser, and Donkey Kong Jr. We'll get back to him. Oh, and that left one free slot that the team weren't sure who to fill with. They felt as though they'd run out of well-known, famous Mario characters to include, but they still had a free slot. Oh, what the heck, said the two designers, and they threw in Koopa Troopa. Sure. And with that, the character roster was complete. But let us rewind for a second, because that still doesn't tell us why Donkey Kong Jr. and not Donkey Kong was chosen for the game. Well, it turns out this is actually quite debated. In an interview released not long after the game came out, producer Shigeru Miyamoto claimed the reason Donkey Kong Jr. was included was that it was the 10-year anniversary of the original arcade game, Donkey Kong Jr., and so it would only be fitting, he saw, to include the character as a sort of nod to the Mario franchise's history and how far it had come. And that makes sense, but Kono and Sugiyama, the directors of Super Mario Kart, remember things slightly differently. According to them, yes, the 10-year anniversary might have weighed into it, but a major factor in their decision was the design of the character itself. Because if we put Donkey Kong and DK Jr. side by side, you'll notice one major difference. DK Jr. is wearing a shirt. But hang on, why would that affect things? Are Nintendo so prudish they can't include Donkey Kong's sexy midriff? No, the reason actually harkens back to Kono and Sugiyama's original prototype for the game, featuring the men in overalls. They had noticed when drawing these characters, and when drawing Mario, who, lest we forget, also wears overalls, it makes it a lot easier to design the character from all the different angles. This is now just me speculating, but I would think that if the character had some kind of shirt, it's much easier to tell which angle you're seeing them from. If they had used regular old Donkey Kong, whose back is just one single colour, it could be hard to tell precisely which angle the kart was facing. And so, in 1992, Super Mario Kart was released, Donkey Kong Jr. included. And just like the DK Jr. arcade game, this Super Mario Kart proved to be massively successful. More so, I would say, considering the fact it launched Mario's most successful spin-off series, Mario Kart. In fact, I couldn't believe this, but the second best-selling Mario game of all time is Mario Kart Wii, behind only the original Super Mario Bros. These games sell like hotcakes, and it's all thanks to Super Mario Kart for the SNES. And that answers the question of why DK Jr. appeared in Super Mario Kart rather than his father, but it still leaves one final mystery. What happened to Donkey Kong Jr.? Well, he's had a number of cameos and such. There's one in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Wii U, he appeared as a trophy in Smash Bros. Melee, a sticker in Smash Bros. Brawl, and a spirit in Smash Bros. Ultimate. But I'm talking about proper appearances. Has he had any? Well, in short, very few, very, very few. He was in Mario Tennis for the Virtual Boy, of all things, although he did also appear in the game's sequel for the N64, which is clearly a bit better known. But as for the Mario Kart series, almost nothing. Looking at the roster for Super Mario Kart's sequel, Mario Kart 64, we can see no sign of DK Jr., but there is Donkey Kong, the original one, this guy. Which I think led many to believe, myself included, that Nintendo replaced DK Jr. with his father dearest. But there's actually a trail of clues which disproves that very hypothesis, because there's a few screenshots of this game in a beta form, an unfinished form, and the selection of characters is ever so slightly different. You'll notice that instead of Donkey Kong, there was a different Nintendo A-lister, Kamek, or Magic Koopa, whatever you prefer. So what does this tell us? In essence, DK Jr. was never a candidate for the game. He wasn't replaced by Donkey Kong because DK Jr. was removed way before Donkey Kong was added. It turns out that the character Donkey Kong replaced was not DK Jr., it was Kamek. And there we go. Mystery solved. Except, I don't find that completely satisfying. Is that really Donkey Kong Jr.'s last appearance in the Mario Kart series? Well, it turns out yes and no, because I want to refer back to some more beta screenshots, but this time for a completely different game, Mario Kart Double Dash. You see, we actually have a screenshot of an early version, a prototype version of Double Dash's character select screen, and look closely, you should see a familiar face. Donkey Kong Jr. That's right, it might seem crazy, but this is definitive proof that Donkey Kong Jr. was originally planned to be in Mario Kart Double Dash. I mean, you can't get clearer evidence than this. But hang on a sec, Donkey Kong Jr. is not in the final version of Double Dash, so what happened to him? Well, this time he was replaced. Replaced by none other than Diddy Kong. Ouch. And let me be clear, Diddy Kong is perfectly fine. I don't mind him. Me and him don't have any personal beef or anything, but it does make me sad. I mean, there could have been this piece of Nintendo heritage in the game for the world to see. That would have been awesome, I think. But alas and alack, it was not meant to be. Or was it? Because while DK Jr. may not have made it in as a full character, he did manage to worm his way in to make one tiny little appearance. If you've played either this game or Mario Kart Wii, it's in that too, you'll remember Waluigi Stadium. It's like this monster truck dirt derby thing. And it's one of the few courses to have a live audience spectating you, who react to how well you're doing with appropriate cheers or boos depending on what's happening in the game. And in the original game, not the Wii version, only Double Dash for the GameCube, one audience member in the stands proves to be a familiar face. Look carefully. Spectating the game, cheering on the other characters, including, I might add, his father is Donkey Kong Jr. Just like in the original arcade game way back, DK Jr. is rooting for, and I suppose in a way, trying to save his dad. And I like that, it kind of circles all the way back round. A reflection of the original game is hidden in the stands of Mario Kart Double Dash. Isn't that neat? Hey, thanks for watching to the end. Thanks for sticking with me. Oh, my voice is almost gone. It's 11 PM. I got 5 hours sleep last night, so I'm ready to conk out. But you can follow me on Twitter at ThomasGDogs to see updates on me and videos. Plus, you can subscribe to this channel, just with the button, to see my future videos. Can you tell I'm sleep deprived? And I will see you next week. Have a great week. Goodbye.